everyone. Thank you for attending my training session today. Today we'll be covering how to accelerate project team performance. I'm going to start out by handing out the agenda. I just want you to take a look over it and let me know if you have any questions before we get started.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So are there any questions at all with the agenda?
No?
No? Perfect. So I want to start off by everyone going around sharing their name, and then I just want you to think about a time when you worked in a team and what did you do to help speed up the outcome of that team. So whether it's in work or in school, what's an example of how you helped speed up the overall performance of the team? Just take a moment to think that. Okay. That's a good moment.
Mm-hmm.
Austin, do you have any? Your name's Austin, so.
Yes, yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah, well, when it came to doing like group projects and
Right.
whatnot, to speed up the process was basically texting them, sending them a text, making sure and giving them a specific time of what I want done on that project.
That's great. Colby?
Well, especially in the team setting, really encouragement is always taking like a positive outlook on the project and really encouraging people to perform at the required level.
Wonderful.
And yeah, for myself, I find that working when you're working with teams, you have to exceed that. I think you set goals, make sure they meet that, and I believe that helps them accelerate.
And sorry, what's your name?
My name is Brahmjeet.
Okay, wonderful.
I'm Alicia. When I work in teams, I try, when I'm done my part, I try to help other people out and give them a hand.
Wonderful, awesome. Great feedback, gets us thinking for our training session, right? So in terms of accelerating a project team performance, when you think of accelerating, some keywords stand out, like speed up, hurry up, faster, drive faster, those kind of words. So in terms of accelerating a project team performance, this really means that a project team will have to manage their resources. And that's what you guys kind of touched on when you were explaining on how to accelerate a project team. We had communication, encouraging them, so that's kind of managing your resources. So it's kind of a question is, well, how can all this be done? So there's really 8 tips on how to accelerate project team performance. So we're going to hand that out and we're going to have a discussion about these 8 tips. So just read through the 8 tips for a moment. So the tips we have are identify any problems, empower the team, set individual goals, provide regular feedback, concentrate on strengths, provide continual communication, celebrate success, and lead by example. So what I just want to do is I want to have a discussion of what we think each of these definitions are and then maybe apply an example. On your sheet there you can kind of take notes on what we discussed because you're going to apply these tips to a scenario later on in our training session. So let's just start off with identify any problems. So what does that mean to you guys when you have to identify any problems in a project team?
Identifying the problem, for me what that means is finding the issue that is causing the project to, kind of like fall a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, but you don't want it to fall. Right?
Okay, wonderful. What do you guys think?
It's like to kind of add on to that, you have to look past the symptoms because there's always a lot of symptoms that we always see, but you would actually to the root of the problem.
Yeah.
I think that's really important of identifying the problems.
Yeah, so has there been an example for you guys where you identified a problem when working in a project team maybe?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, what's that?
And that is, I noticed that there was like a problem within a place I worked at and in a restaurant, and so I realized that the problem was the supervisor because he had a bad supervisory kind of like job description.
Okay.
What he's doing. He's just like micromanaging all the time.
Right, so that's great. So sometimes a problem can really be a person, right? It's just not an idea. It can be a problem that needs to be solved and having a conversation with that person. So that's great. Good job on the first tip. So the next one, the second tip is empower the team. So what does that sound like? I think Colby kind of touched on that in the beginning, empowering a team. Why is that important to accelerating a project team performance?
I think you might be able to, by empowering the team members, bring about more creative or more complete solutions to the problems
Wonderful.
that have been identified.
Yeah, so in our studies here at NATE, has there been a time where you brought someone or yourself brought more creative solutions to the table to get maybe a project done on time? Has that happened?
Like, I think it's like all about compromise and stuff, like
Mm-hmm.
finding the middle ground. Like, obviously, we all have busy schedules, like, you have to find the compromise. Like, you have issues with the manager, again, like, bring that up to him or her to,
Yeah,
kind of figure out that issue.
perfect. So our third tip is set individual goals. So what does that sound like when trying to accelerate a project team?
Definitely meeting like one-on-one with your manager or your supervisor to set like goals. I know at my workplace, we have to set yearly and quarterly goals that we have to meet. And there's plenty of time to reflect, and we have to meet a couple times in between to check our progress.
Yeah, so that's a great example, meeting regularly, touching in, having those conversations face to face about those individual goals. Good, does anybody else have anything to add to that?
I think it's important too to make SMART goals rather than just
Wonderful.
regular goals, because
Yes.
ensures that everything is set out and nobody has,
Mm-hmm.
you know what you're doing.
Yeah, SMART goals are really important for sure. So our fourth tip is provide regular feedback. So what does that look like in trying to accelerate a project team, providing regular feedback?
Providing feedback is, well, sometimes you'll see it in like, businesses where the supervisor would talk to, let's say, a server person, for example, just in person to provide her feedback and letting her know that is she doing well, is she not. Sometimes it even provides feedback for new workers that come in too, right?
Great.
They have to when it comes to new workers.
Yeah, have you guys had opportunities where you've received feedback?
Yeah, at work they do regular performance reviews. And
Great.
they give you feedback on what you're doing well and what you need to improve on.
I find personally, even if it's a little thank you or you did a great job on this, saying thank you really goes a long way in terms of working in a team because it kind of lifts your spirits up and it really gets you motivated. So providing feedback, I think, is really important when you're trying to get that team moving forward to an end goal, for sure. So our fifth tip is concentrate on strengths. So I think we can all kind of relate to this well in school. So what does that look like when trying to accelerate the performance of a team?
I think it's just knowing what everyone's strengths are
Mhm.
and playing them up. So if somebody's really good at editing a paper, let's say,
Yeah.
then they should be the ones to edit the paper because it just means things are going to run more efficiently and quicker.
Wonderful. Yeah. What about you guys? Do you have anything to add?
Pretty much, let's say someone is good at accounting, for example,
Yes.
and then
So in a company, right?
for a company, and you need an accountant,
Right.
and you need someone with more experience,
Yeah. Mhm.
and you want to hire that person, for example.
Yes.
And then in order to handle like all the tax, it's tax season, right?
Mhm.
And then they'll be able to handle the tax faster, and make things go faster, give them better
Wonderful.
service.
Yeah. So, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Also, having conversations with your team about their strengths and weaknesses and making sure that people are comfortable sharing what they're good at and comfortable asking for help when they're not as
Yeah. So,
strong.
yeah, that's great. It's one thing to know what everyone's strengths are, like I'm good at this, you're good at that, but the entire team needs to know what this person's good at this person's good at that, so you know that you can go to that person and ask for that support. So that's great, Colby. Thank you for that. So our sixth tip is provide continual communication. So Colby kind of touched on that there. Why is this important when trying to accelerate a project team?
Well, it sure ensures that everyone's on the same page and
Mhm.
nothing's being missed.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah.
Communication is pretty important. That can apply to anything, right? Like it's in your personal life, your relationships, your friends.
Yeah.
Communication is very important.
Yeah, so do you guys have any examples where you use communication in the workplace or for a project here at school?
For work, well, there was miscommunications, for an example.
Mhm.
So for me, I was told to do a particular task,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden I hear someone else, like another task that I have to do, and I was like, okay, listen here. I was like,
Mhm.
there's too many things going on right now, and there's miscommunications.
Right.
And then I was like, I want to get it straight here. I want to make sure, it's only one thing
Yeah.
instead of multiple things that I have to do.
That's great. Wonderful. So our 7th tip is celebrate successes. So what does that look like for a project team?
I think when there's like team goals set, I think that you should celebrate. Like I know a lot of people, like in my workplace, we complete a project and everyone's like, oh, cool, we did it, and then we just go on our way. But I think as like a manager and supervisor, you should step up, like, yeah, like you guys did great, like let's, like I'll let you guys go home early, or maybe take the next Friday off, right?
Right.
Those are the small things, right? Like you think it's like, oh yeah, it's awesome, get the Friday off, which is like, it just celebrate that success. It just makes it so much make you feel better.
Yeah, and it keeps you kind of with the team, right? Keeps you that you're celebrating, you're there with the team, and it's really important to do that. So our final tip is lead by example. So kind of in terms of a supervisor, a manager, project manager, why is that important for that person to lead by example, to try to keep the team engaged with trying to push the project forward?
Pretty much you want to be able to inspire, it's
Yeah.
you're a supervisor, you want to be able to inspire their workers, and being able to motivate them, and what are your ways of being able to motivate them.
Great, wonderful. Perfect, so does anybody have any questions or comments about these 8 tips? Does that kind of help everyone get them thinking about how to accelerate a project team performance?
Is this based off a model or just you?
I did some research, so I've read a few articles, and this is kind of what I brought together. And also from my own experiences, I think communication is really important too, like that. So yeah, I read a few articles and then kind of pooled this together. There's no particular model per se to how to accelerate a project team performance, but this is kind of what was suggested on the internet. Yeah. Okay, so now that we've discussed those 8 tips, we're going to apply them to some scenarios. Okay, so I'll pass out these scenarios. Who would like to read scenario number 1 for me?
I'll volunteer.
Okay, thank you so much.
No worries. So number 1, you have a group project due in 3 weeks for one of your online classes. There are 4 people within your group. It requires your group to create a PowerPoint presentation as well as a 10-page report. With the amount of work that is to be done, you know that your team will have to work hard. How can your team accelerate their project team performance to ensure the deadline is met on time? Apply at least 4 of the tips previously discussed.
Okay, and then can someone just read the second one for me, please?
Okay. You work at a large construction company. You are a project manager and have the team of 25 people who report to you. Your team has been assigned to a project that is required to be completed in 4 months. Projects like this usually take about 6 months to complete. Therefore, you know that you need to accelerate your project team performance. How can you accelerate their project team performance to ensure that the deadline is on time? Apply at least 4 tips previously mentioned.
Perfect. So we see we kind of have 2 separate scenarios, right? So what I would like us to do is to work in pairs. You 2 can work together, and then you 2 can work together. I'll give you maybe 5 minutes or so, and like it says, apply at least 4 of the tips to each scenario, and just jot notes why this tip would apply and why it would be good. Perfect.
I think for the first one, it's really important to know everyone's strengths.
That's a really good one. I believe that would help in accelerating the team.
I feel like they've identified the problem, right? But
Yeah.
And,
It's like we're getting the brain flowing, that's good.
Yeah.
I think leading by example is good, we should preach and practice.
Yeah. If there's more work required, then everybody will be on board.
Let's see, concentrate on strengths.
I think you
No
could
setting
also,
of, no setting of individual goals.
Mhm.
Because of, like, how can you,
I think you could
how
celebrate
your team
success
to
too,
get
so there's
celebrated,
like
right? You
two parts to
definitely.
this, so
Yep.
PowerPoint and
Okay.
whiteboard.
Yes, yes, definitely at the end, maybe.
Yeah.
Individual and team goals perhaps, Steve?
Yeah,
Yeah.
And set individual goals.
You could, yeah.
Looks like we have some good stuff down for the first scenario.
empower the team
Do you want
for
us to
sure.
work on
Big time.
that?
Empower.
Yeah, go ahead, if you're done the first scenario, everyone, you can move forward to the second one. If you have those 4 tips written down.
There's no time for extra micromanagement in this one.
No, and then communication's a big one for this one.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because if you want to empower the team, you need to have good communication.
And the poor
I think,
communication
once again, the lead by example is really important.
can really be
Yeah,
John
isolating.
Lewis.
I agree with that one.
Fine. In this short time
Because
frame,
you are the problem.
we're really gonna have to concentrate on each team member's strengths, right? So somebody's good at editing, somebody's
a group
good at creative writing and things like that.
So, and then number 2 here, you work on construction.
And providing regular feedback, just because there are like 25 people.
Mhm. I think empowering the team
The
too.
problem for this one is they can be cut short on time, right? So
Yeah.
really communicating that problem and saying, listen,
Yeah.
we have, just so everybody's on the same page.
So communication, right?
Continual
I'll give everybody about 1 more minute, just to wrap up.
Let's see here. Definitely some
25 people,
25.
you really need empowerment again.
Yeah,
You'll
empowerment for sure.
be running around.
And then you want to lead by example
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Because with 25 people, definitely, you know, it's not to give them, like, give them, lead by example, give them, you know, making sure they're motivated, right?
Not sure.
Good.
Just have like
Yeah.
more meetings, that like.
Oh, yeah, those motivational
Just one more.
meetings.
Let's see.
A few more
Provide
seconds.
feedback, because like,
They can put them on, get a good checkup.
Mhm.
you never know, like someone.
Where you like,
Yeah.
what's your, like, your part?
You know, out of the 25, they
Yeah.
won't be that great, but you want to, if you want them to be great, you need to give them feedback.
Yeah, for sure.
That touches on communication as well.
Great, so it looks like we're finishing up there. So I'd like to just, excuse me, have a discussion, quick discussion about each of these scenarios. So for the first one, for the project for an online class, it's really the key word there because you've never met these people,
Of course, yeah.
right? So how are you going to communicate, get these people together to push this project forward? What did you guys come up with this side?
Wait,
yeah.
go ahead.
No, you right.
Oh, we said it was really important to concentrate on everybody's strengths.
Yes.
Just because it is online and you don't know them.
Yeah, great. Well, anything else to add?
Like, just to add on to that, like, we could, like, have some kind of discussion, I know, like, some profs, they have a discussion forum for your group,
Oh, yes.
so we can, like, talk to each other and be like, hey, I'm good at editing, or,
So that aspect would be communication, right?
yes, yeah.
That's good, to use those discussion forums for an online class to do the tip of communicating continually. Great. What do you guys have for the first scenario? What are some of the tips you wrote down?
For this one, empowerment again for the
Mhm.
employees because.
Oh,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
the first one. for
No,
the
sorry,
employment.
for the,
Yeah.
for your classmates,
Yes.
because we may not be meeting as a team, right? It's an online class and really making sure that they have, when they're assigned a part,
Mhm.
they have what they need to complete the part.
Great, yeah, those are all great points. Let's just talk about the second one. So the construction company or a project manager, 25 people, you have 4 months?
4 months.
Usually happens in 6 months, the project. So what are some points that you guys stated on how to accelerate?
So I think providing regular feedback is quite important.
Yes.
You want to ensure that the members are getting some kind of guidance or getting some positive feedback to accelerate their team.
That's wonderful. What about you?
We put, what is it, lead by example?
Yes.
Because leading by example, because you have like a team of 25 people.
So the
And
project
that's-
manager would lead by example, right?
So, you know, and out of the 25 people, you know, you never know, like, out of the 25, are they good or are they not good? And then you want to be able to lead by example by providing them feedback
Great.
and to make sure they improve.
Wonderful. Awesome. So, sorry.
Sorry. And then we also kind of combined identifying the problem and communication by communicating the issue that they're cut short by 2 months. So really making sure that everybody understands that this project will take more work.
Yeah, great. So I really hope those 8 tips, applying them to a scenario, really helped. Just to conclude our session, now you have 8 tips moving forward to apply, whether it's on a school project or in the workplace working on a project. We saw 2 very different scenarios. So I hope these tips are something that you could bring forward, that you can apply on how to accelerate your teams, project teams, moving forward. So I just want to take a moment for everyone to reflect, 30 seconds or 15 seconds, on what stood out for you the most in this session. So just have a pause and just think for 10 seconds. Great, I think that's a good amount of time. We can start over here on this side. I would like to go around and everybody share one quick thing that stood out for them during the session.
I thought these 8 tips were really cool that you brought in, that they touch on the different aspects of accelerating a team, and I thought that was fantastic.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I agree that the tips are great. I think especially the identifying any problems that are there, because as Bremjeet said, it's important to know what the actual problem is rather than just the symptoms, because
Yeah.
if you're accelerating your performance, you need to know that you're hitting the right topic.
Wonderful, great. You guys, just a quick tip that stood out or something?
I would say the scenarios that I found that really stood out.
Great,
And
that's
that we were
awesome.
able to apply it to the 8 tips that we
Yeah.
had on to here.
Wonderful. Colby, what stood out for you?
Celebrating success, not a lot of, or like, a lot of teams may not do this. They may go right into the next project or next thing that needs to be done without taking a minute to understand that they achieved something that was very important for whether it's their school or their education or the company that they work for.
Yeah, so it seems like everyone took something away from this training session, so thank you for participating. Before we end our session, I do have an evaluation that I would like you to complete. First off, it's just a few little boxes if you agree, somewhat agree or disagree with the statement. And then at the end, there's a box to leave any additional comments, how to make this training session more effective. Again, thank you for spending your morning with me, and I appreciate you learning with me about how to accelerate project team performance.
Thank you.
Thank you.